But life has a funny way of pulling you into situations you never asked for. It started with a phone call on a Thursday evening. Lily was grading drawings from her kindergarten class when her mother's panicked voice came through the phone. "You need to come to the hospital right now. It's about Jessica's fiancé. Alexander had been in a terrible car accident. The doctors said he might not make it through the night." Lily rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding. Not because she knew Alexander well, but because she knew what this would do to her sister. Jessica had been planning this wedding for months, showing off her engagement ring to anyone who would look at it. When Lily arrived at the hospital, she found her sister in the waiting room, but Jessica wasn't crying. She was on her phone, scrolling through something with an annoyed look on her face. Their mother was the one with tears in her eyes. "How is he?" Lily asked softly. "They put him in a coma," her mother whispered. "Something about swelling in his brain. They don't know if he'll wake up." Lily looked at Jessica, expecting to see some emotion, but her sister just sighed and said, "This is the worst timing ever. Fashion Week is next month." Something cold settled in Lily's stomach, but she pushed it away. Maybe Jessica was just in shock. People handle trauma differently, right? The next few days were a blur. Alexander's family arrived at the hospital. His grandmother was a tiny woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. His parents looked exhausted, aged 10 years overnight. They whispered about business deals and contracts and things Lily didn't understand. Then on the fourth day, Jessica disappeared. Lily got a text message at 6 in the morning. "I can't do this. I'm going to Paris. Tell Mom I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation. No goodbye to the man she was supposed to marry. Just a plane ticket to Paris and a sister left to pick up the pieces. Lily spent that morning trying to reach Jessica, but every call went straight to voicemail. She finally went to her parents' house to break the news, dreading the conversation. Her mother would be heartbroken. Her father, who was recovering from cancer treatment, would be stressed, and stress was the last thing he needed right now. But when she arrived, she found Alexander's grandmother sitting in their living room. "Miss Lily," the old woman said, her voice calm but firm, "please sit down. We need to talk." Lily sat confused. Why was Alexander's grandmother in her parents' house? "Your sister has left," the grandmother stated. It wasn't a question.
"She's abandoned my grandson in his time of need." Lily's mother started crying.
Her father looked down at his hands. "There's a complication," the grandmother continued. "Alexander's company is in the middle of a very important merger. The contract requires him to be married by the end of the month, or we lose everything. Billions of dollars. Thousands of jobs. My grandson's life's work. I don't understand what this has to do with us," Lily said, though a sinking feeling told her she was about to find out. The grandmother leaned forward. "We need someone to marry Alexander. The ceremony can be simple, just a legal formality. You would be compensated, of course." Lily's mouth fell open. "You want me to marry him? A man in a coma? That's insane." "It's business," the grandmother said coldly. Then her expression softened slightly as she glanced at Lily's father. "I understand your father's medical bills have been quite substantial. $300,000 in debt, if I'm not mistaken." The room went silent. Lily felt like she'd been slapped. Her father's cancer treatment had drained their savings. They'd sold their house, moved into a rental, and still the bills kept coming. Lily had been working weekend tutoring jobs, trying to help. But it was like trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. "If you agree to this arrangement," the grandmother continued, "all of your father's medical debt will be cleared, immediately. You would also receive a monthly allowance for the duration of the marriage. When Alexander wakes up, we can quietly arrange for an annulment. And if he doesn't wake up," Lily's voice was barely a whisper. The grandmother's expression didn't change. "Then you would remain his wife and continue to receive financial support. Either way, your family's troubles would be over." Lily looked at her parents. Her mother was crying silently. Her father met her eyes, and she could see the guilt and shame there. He'd worked his whole life, provided for his family, and now he was the reason his youngest daughter was being asked to do something unthinkable. "You have 1 week to decide," the grandmother said, standing up. "I know this is difficult, but sometimes life asks us to make hard choices. Think about your family. Think about all those hospital bills crushing your father. Think about what one simple ceremony could mean for everyone's future." After she left, Lily's parents begged her not to do it. They said they'd figure something else out, that they'd declare bankruptcy if they had to. But Lily had seen the foreclosure notices. She'd heard her father crying in the bathroom when he thought no one could hear. She'd watched her mother take on 3 different cleaning jobs just to keep food on the table. That night, Lily went to the hospital. She stood outside Alexander's room for a long time before finally going in. He looked peaceful, almost like he was just sleeping. The machines beeped steadily, tracking heartbeats and brainwaves and a dozen other things she didn't understand. She'd met Alexander exactly twice before this. Once at a family dinner where Jessica had shown him off like a prize, and once at a coffee shop where they'd bumped into each other by accident. He'd been kind, holding the door open for an elderly woman and picking up a toy a toddler had dropped. Jessica had seemed almost annoyed by his kindness, rushing him along to wherever they needed to be. "I don't even know you," Lily whispered to the unconscious man, "but apparently I'm going to marry you." She sat down in the chair next to his bed and tried to imagine what her life would become. A fake wife to a comatose millionaire, living in his house pretending to be something she wasn't, all to save her family from financial ruin. The week passed too quickly. Lily researched every other option, applied for medical debt relief programs, looked into loans and payment plans. Nothing would work fast enough. The debt collectors were already calling every day. Her father's health was deteriorating from the stress. On the 7th day, Lily called Alexander's grandmother and said 2 words that would change her life forever. "I'll do it." The wedding was arranged for the following Tuesday. Hospital chapel. No guests except for the immediate families and 2 witnesses. Lily bought a simple white dress from a department store. Nothing fancy. It felt wrong to wear something beautiful for something so fake. As she stood in that chapel, looking at Alexander in his hospital bed, wheeled in for the ceremony, Lily wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. The minister spoke the traditional words, but they felt hollow, meaningless. When it came time for her vows, Lily's voice shook. "I do." Alexander, of course, said nothing. The minister pronounced them husband and wife. There was no kiss, no celebration, just signatures on legal documents and the weight of a gold ring that felt too heavy on Lily's finger. She was now Mrs. Alexander Morrison, wife to a man who didn't even know she existed. A man her sister had abandoned. A man trapped somewhere between life and death, and Lily had absolutely no idea what came next. Moving into the Morrison mansion felt like stepping into someone else's life. Actually, it felt like stepping into a museum. Everything was expensive, polished, and cold. Lily stood in the massive foyer with her 2 suitcases, feeling smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. "Your room is on the 2nd floor. East wing," Alexander's grandmother said, leading the way up a grand staircase. "Alexander's room is in the west wing. The staff will help you settle in." Staff. The mansion had staff. A housekeeper named Patricia, who looked at Lily with barely concealed pity. A cook who prepared meals Lily couldn't pronounce. A groundskeeper who maintained gardens bigger than the park near her old apartment. The room they gave her was bigger than her entire previous apartment. It had a king-sized bed, a walk-in closet, and windows overlooking rose gardens. It was beautiful. It was lonely. That first night, Lily cried herself to sleep, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. But the next morning, she made a decision. If she was going to be Alexander's wife, even if it was fake, even if he'd never know, she'd do it properly. She'd visit him every day. She'd be there for him. It was the least she could do. The hospital became her second home. Every morning after teaching her kindergarten class, Lily would drive to the medical center and spend hours sitting beside Alexander's bed. At first, she didn't know what to do. Just sitting there felt awkward. So she started talking to him. "The nurses say you might be able to hear me," she said on the 3rd day. "I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to talk anyway. It's better than sitting in silence." She told him about her day, about little Tommy, who'd finally learned to tie his shoelaces after weeks of trying, about Maya, who'd drawn a picture of a dinosaur that looked more like a purple blob but made everyone smile. Small, ordinary things from a small, ordinary life. 1 week turned into 2. 2 weeks turned into a month. Lily brought books from her apartment and read to Alexander. She started with children's books because they were what she had, but then she discovered Alexander had his own collection at the mansion. She found them in his private study, a room his grandmother finally unlocked for her. That's when everything changed. The study was different from the rest of the mansion. It felt lived in, real. There were books everywhere, Coffee stains on the desk, notes scribbled on sticky papers. And in the desk drawer, Lily found journals. Personal journals where Alexander had written his thoughts. She knew she shouldn't read them. It felt like invading his privacy. But curiosity won, and she opened the first one. The first entry made her drop the journal in shock. Close the Chen Technologies deal today. $2 billion valuation. Mom thinks I should go public, but I'm not ready yet. Maybe next year. $2 billion. Lily read it again. Then again. She grabbed her phone and searched for Alexander Morrison Tech. The results made her head spin. Alexander wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country. He'd built an artificial intelligence company from his college dorm room and turned it into an empire. There were articles about him in business magazines, photos of him at charity events, interviews where he talked about using technology to solve social problems. But here's what confused Lily. Jessica had introduced Alexander as a business consultant, someone who did okay but nothing special. Jessica's engagement ring, while nice, wasn't extravagant. She'd complained that Alexander drove a boring sedan and preferred cooking at home to fancy restaurants. He'd been hiding his wealth from Jessica. The more Lily read through the journals, the more she understood why. Entry after entry showed Alexander's doubts about Jessica's intentions. He'd tested her, keeping his real success hidden, wanting to know if she'd love him without the billions attached to his name. One entry, dated just 3 weeks before the accident, broke Lily's heart. Saw Jessica with that photographer again today. She said they were just friends, but the way he looked at her, I'm not stupid. I think she's waiting for someone better, someone more exciting. I'm just the stable choice, the backup plan. How do I confront her about this? Do I even want to know the truth? Lily closed the journal and sat in Alexander's chair for a long time. Her sister had been cheating on this man. This kind, thoughtful man who gave millions to charity and worried about social inequality. Jessica had been playing him, and Alexander had known something was wrong. That night at the hospital, Lily looked at Alexander differently. She pulled her chair closer to his bed. I read your journals, she admitted. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. And I need to tell you something. Jessica was wrong. Whatever she did, whatever she was planning, she was wrong. You deserve better than that. She visited his grandmother the next day and asked questions. The old woman, perhaps sensing Lily's genuine interest, opened up. Alexander built everything himself, she said, pouring tea in the mansion's sitting room. His parents wanted him to join the family business, but he had his own dreams. Started coding when he was 12. Had his first patent at 16. He's brilliant, but more than that, he's good. Truly good. She showed Lily the foundation Alexander had started. Programs that provided technology education to underprivileged kids. Scholarships for students who couldn't afford college. Medical research funding. Alexander had been quietly giving away millions, helping people without wanting credit or recognition. He never told Jessica about any of this, his grandmother said. He wanted to know if she loved him for who he was, not what he had. And my sister failed that test, Lily said quietly. The grandmother nodded. Spectacularly. After that conversation, Lily's visits to the hospital changed. She didn't just talk about her day anymore. She talked to Alexander like a friend. She told him about finding his journals, about learning who he really was. She shared her own dreams, things she'd never told anyone. I always wanted to open my own school, she confessed one evening. A place where kids from all backgrounds could learn together. Where families wouldn't have to choose between paying rent and giving their children a good education. But that takes money I'll never have. Teachers don't make enough to save for dreams like that. She brought his favorite music, jazz albums she found in his study. The nurses said music could help coma patients. Lily played soft jazz during her visits, and sometimes she'd just sit there listening, watching Alexander's chest rise and fall with the ventilator. 3 months passed. Lily had gotten used to the routine. School, hospital, mansion, repeat. She decorated Alexander's hospital room with photos she'd found in his study. Pictures of him volunteering at soup kitchens, teaching coding to kids, hiking in mountains. She wanted him to see himself when he woke up, to remember who he was, if he woke up. The doctors were less optimistic with each passing week. Lily refused to give up hope. She talked to him about everything. Her fears, her regrets, her hopes, things she'd never said out loud to anyone. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, she whispered one night when the hospital was quiet. Marrying you like this. But then I think about my dad, how he's getting better now without the stress of those bills, how my mom smiles again, and I think maybe some sacrifices are worth it. She paused, touching his hand gently. I know this sounds crazy. You don't even know me, but I feel like I know you. Through your journals, your music, the life you built. You're a good person, Alexander. Better than you probably realize. And I hope you wake up soon because the world needs more people like you in it. What Lily didn't say, what she barely admitted to herself, was that she'd started to care about him, not the billionaire in the magazines, not Jessica's ex-fiancé, but the real Alexander, the one who wrote poetry in his journals and worried about helping others and wanted to make the world better. It was ridiculous. You can't fall for someone in a coma, someone who'd never spoken to you, never looked at you, never even knew you existed in his life. But hearts don't follow logic. It was a Tuesday afternoon, one of those gray, rainy days that made everything feel heavy. Lily had brought a new book, a mystery novel she thought Alexander might enjoy. She was reading aloud, doing different voices for the characters to keep herself entertained when she noticed something. She stopped mid-sentence. Had his finger just moved? Lily stared at Alexander's hand, her heart pounding. Alexander? She whispered. Can you hear me? Nothing. Maybe she'd imagined it. It had been a long day. She was tired. She went back to reading, but her eyes kept drifting to his hand. And then it happened again, just the slightest movement. His index finger twitched. Lily dropped the book and hit the call button. Nurse, doctor. Someone, please. The room filled with medical staff. They checked his vitals, his brain activity, asked Lily questions about what she'd seen. The doctor looked cautiously optimistic. It could be a reflex, he warned, but it could also mean he's starting to wake up. We'll need to monitor him closely over the next few days. After everyone left, Lily sat back down, her hands shaking. She looked at Alexander's peaceful face, at the machine still breathing for him, at the finger that had moved. Come back, she whispered. Please come back. She didn't leave the hospital that night. Or the next. She couldn't. Because after months of sitting vigil beside a stranger who'd become so much more, Lily finally had hope that Alexander Morrison might actually wake up and meet the wife he never knew he had. Alexander opened his eyes on a Wednesday morning, 5 months after the accident. Lily had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, her head resting on her arms next to him. She woke to the sound of machines beeping faster and a nurse rushing into the room. He's awake, the nurse said, and Lily's heart nearly stopped. Alexander's eyes were open, but unfocused. He looked confused, scared even. Doctors flooded into the room, checking everything, asking him questions. Could he see? Could he hear? Did he know his name? Where he was? Lily backed away, giving them space, her hands covering her mouth. He was awake. After all these months, Alexander was actually awake. The next few hours were chaos. Tests, scans, examinations. Alexander was weak, disoriented. The doctors explained he'd been in a coma for 5 months. He looked shocked, like he couldn't quite believe it. The last thing he remembered was getting in his car to drive somewhere. Everything after that was blank. When the room finally cleared and Lily was allowed back in, Alexander looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes were tired but alert. Jessica, he said, his voice rough from months of not speaking. You're here, Lily froze. He thought she was Jessica. Of course he did. He'd been engaged to Jessica. He had no memory of the accident, the abandonment, the hospital wedding. He didn't know anything had changed. Before Lily could say anything, Dr. Chen pulled her into the hallway. Don't correct him yet, the doctor said firmly. His brain is still healing. Any shock to his system right now could cause serious complications. We need to let him stabilize. Give it a few days, let him regain his strength, then we can gradually help him understand what happened. But that's lying to him, Lily protested. It's protecting him, Dr. Chen said. Please, just for a few days. So Lily found herself in an impossible situation once again. She went back into the room and Alexander smiled at her. A weak, tired smile, but genuine. I'm glad you're here, he said. I had the strangest dreams. Lily sat down, her heart racing. Just rest. We can talk later. Over the next few days, as Alexander grew stronger, Lily walked a tightrope of half-truths. She stayed by his side during his physical therapy, watching him struggle to regain control of his weakened muscles. He'd been a strong man before, athletic. Now he could barely walk 10 steps without help, It frustrated him. Lily could see the anger in his eyes when his legs wouldn't cooperate, when his hands shook trying to hold a cup of water. "You don't have to stay," he told her one afternoon. "I know this isn't glamorous." "I want to be here," Lily said, and she meant it. That's when she noticed Alexander looking at her strangely. "You've changed," he said. Lily's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You're different. Calmer maybe, more—" He searched for the word. "Present." Lily didn't know what to say. She just squeezed his hand. As the days passed, Alexander kept noticing things. Small things that didn't add up in his memory. "When did you start listening to jazz?" he asked one day when Lily put on music during his therapy session. I've always liked it," Lily said, which was true. She had always liked jazz. "But you used to say it was boring," Alexander said, confused. "You said it put you to sleep." Lily's stomach twisted. Jessica had said that. Jessica hated jazz. "People change," she said quietly. Alexander studied her face, and Lily could see the wheels turning in his head. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't figure out what. The grandmother visited regularly, and Lily noticed how carefully the old woman spoke, never mentioning Jessica's name, always referring to things vaguely. The staff did the same. Everyone was protecting Alexander from the truth, but Alexander was smart. Too smart. He'd built a tech empire. He noticed patterns, inconsistencies. "Tell me about the wedding," he said one evening. "Our wedding?" "I can't remember it clearly." Lily felt sick. "You need to focus on recovery right now." "I want to remember our wedding," he pressed. "Help me remember." "It was small," Lily said carefully. "Just family." You weren't feeling well," he frowned. "Why can't I remember any of it?" Dr. Chen saved her, coming in for evening rounds. But Alexander's questions kept coming. Why couldn't he remember the months before the accident? Why did his fiancée seem like a completely different person? Why did everyone act so strange whenever he asked about the past? Then came the moment Lily had been dreading. 3 weeks after Alexander woke up, he was transferred to a rehabilitation facility. On his first day there, during a therapy session, he asked to see his phone. "I need to check on work," he said. 5 months is a long time to be away. The therapist looked at Lily, uncertain. There was no way to avoid it anymore. Lily handed him his phone. Alexander scrolled through messages, emails, notifications. His face grew more confused. Then he opened his Photos app. Lily watched the color drain from his face. He'd found the wedding photos. Photos his grandmother had insisted on taking for legal purposes. Photos that clearly showed Lily in a wedding dress standing next to Alexander's hospital bed. "This is you," he said, looking at Lily, then at the phone, then back at Lily. "This is you in these photos." "Alexander, let me explain. This isn't Jessica." His voice was shaking. "You're not Jessica." The room went silent. The therapist quietly left, giving them privacy. "Who are you?" Alexander demanded. "Why did you let me think you were someone else?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "The doctors said not to shock you. They said it could hurt your recovery. So you lied to me? For weeks? You let me believe—" He stopped, running his hands through his hair. "Who are you?" "I'm Lily, Jessica's younger sister." Alexander stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "Jessica's sister? You're Jessica's sister and we're married? It's complicated. Where is Jessica?" His voice was getting louder. "Where is my actual fiancé?" Lily took a deep breath. "She left. When you had the accident, she left. She went to Paris and didn't come back." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Alexander looked like she'd physically hit him. "She abandoned me," he said slowly, processing it. "And you—" "What? They made you marry me instead? Your company needed you to be married for some business deal. The contract had a deadline. Your grandmother asked me to help and my family needed—" She couldn't finish. It sounded awful out loud. "Money," Alexander said bitterly. "Your family needed money." "My father's medical bills," Lily said, tears streaming down her face now. "Cancer treatment. We were drowning in debt. I didn't want to do it, but they were going to lose everything." Alexander laughed, but it was a harsh, painful sound. "So I'm what? A business transaction? A way to pay off debt?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" He looked at her with hurt and anger mixing in his eyes. "You pretended to be my wife. You sat here every day, played music, read books, acted like you cared, and it was all fake. All of it. That's not true, Lily said desperately. Yes, it started as an arrangement, but get out. Alexander, please, get out. His voice cracked. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear your explanations. You lied to me. Everyone lied to me. Just go. Lily stood there, tears blurring her vision, wanting to tell him everything. About the months she'd spent reading to him. About discovering his journals and falling for the person he was. About the one-sided conversations where she'd shared her deepest secrets. About how somewhere along the way this arrangement had become real for her. But the look on his face stopped her. He was hurt, betrayed, angry. Nothing she said right now would make it better. So she left. Outside in the hallway, Lily collapsed against the wall and cried. She'd known this moment would come. She'd known the truth would hurt him. But she hadn't expected it to hurt her this much too. Because somewhere in those 5 months of sitting beside a sleeping man, of learning who he really was, of hoping and praying he'd wake up, Lily had done the stupidest thing possible. She'd fallen in love with him, and now he hated her. Alexander didn't speak to Lily for 3 days. She stayed at the mansion, but he refused her visits at the rehab facility. His grandmother was the one who finally called her into the study. He wants to see you, the old woman said, but prepare yourself. He's not happy. Lily drove to the facility with her stomach in knots. When she entered Alexander's room, he was sitting in a wheelchair by the window, looking stronger than before but emotionally exhausted. Sit, he said without looking at her. Lily sat. I want to know everything, Alexander said, his voice flat and cold. From the beginning. No lies this time, so Lily told him. About Jessica leaving. About her father's cancer bills, about the business merger deadline. She told him about the hospital chapel wedding. About moving into his mansion. About the months of sitting beside his bed. I read your journals, she admitted. I know I shouldn't have, but that's how I learned who you really were. About your company, your charity work, everything you'd hidden from Jessica. Alexander's jaw tightened at his ex-fiancé's name. I talk to you every day, Lily continued. I know you couldn't hear me, but it felt wrong to just sit in silence. I told you about my students, my life. I played your jazz music. I brought you books, her voice cracked. I know you think it was all fake, but it wasn't. Those months mattered to me. They mattered to you because you were getting paid, Alexander said harshly. The words stung, but Lily couldn't deny them. At first, yes, but somewhere along the way it became real. I started caring about you. Not the billionaire version from the magazines. The real you. The person who wrote poetry in his journals and worried about helping kids get a good education. Alexander finally looked at her. And now? What happens now? That's up to you, Lily said quietly. If you want an annulment, I'll sign the papers today. I'll move out of the mansion. You'll never have to see me again. Something flickered in Alexander's eyes, but it disappeared quickly. The business merger, he said. Is it done? Not yet. Your company's board is still finalizing things. Your grandmother says it'll take another 6 months. Alexander was quiet for a long time. I want you to stay, he finally said. Lily's heart jumped. Stay? Not because I forgive you. Not because we're suddenly going to play happy couple. His voice was hard. But because backing out of the arrangement now would raise questions. The board is already nervous about my recovery. If they find out my marriage is fake, built on my coma, it could destroy the merger. Thousands of people's jobs depend on this deal. So it's still just business, Lily said, trying to hide her disappointment. Yes, just business. Alexander pulled out a checkbook from his wheelchair bag. I'll pay you an additional $500,000 to continue the arrangement until the merger is complete. After that, we part ways quietly. No drama, no questions. Lily stared at the check he was writing. $500,000. More money than she'd ever dreamed of having. Enough to secure her family's future forever. Enough to maybe open that school she'd always wanted. But it felt like a knife in her heart. Fine, she said, taking the check with shaking hands. 6 more months, Alexander nodded curtly. I'll be back at the mansion in 2 weeks. We'll maintain separate rooms. We'll attend public events together when necessary for appearances. Beyond that, stay out of my way. Lily left the facility feeling worse than when she'd arrived. She'd hoped for understanding, maybe even forgiveness eventually. Instead, she'd gotten a business arrangement made even more cold and transactional than before. The next few weeks were torture. Lily went through the motions of her life, teaching, grading papers, pretending everything was fine. But at night, alone in her huge bedroom at the mansion, she cried. Then she started feeling sick. At first, she thought it was stress. But when the nausea didn't stop, when she started feeling dizzy and exhausted all the time, a horrible thought occurred to her. She bought a pregnancy test on her way home from school one day. Then another, and another, all positive. Lily sat on the bathroom floor staring at the 3 positive tests, trying to remember when this could have happened. And then it hit her. About 2 weeks before Alexander fully woke up, there had been a night when he'd been partially conscious but confused. The nurses had warned her he might have periods of semi-awareness. He'd reached for her, mumbling words she couldn't understand, pulling her close. She'd thought he was just disoriented, having some kind of dream. She'd stayed with him to keep him calm, and things had happened that she'd been too ashamed to tell anyone about. She'd convinced herself it didn't mean anything. He'd been barely conscious, not in his right mind. She'd never mentioned it to the doctors or his family. Now she was pregnant with his child. Lily spent days trying to figure out what to do. Tell him, keep it secret? She finally decided she'd wait until after the merger was complete. After they went their separate ways, she'd raise the baby on her own. Alexander had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with her beyond the business arrangement. Why burden him with this? But keeping secrets in the Morrison mansion was nearly impossible. Patricia, the housekeeper, noticed Lily wasn't eating breakfast anymore. She noticed the crackers Lily kept by her bedside for morning sickness. She noticed everything, and while she didn't say anything directly, Lily caught the knowing looks. Then Jessica came back. She showed up at the mansion on a Tuesday afternoon like she'd never left. Designer luggage, perfect makeup, acting like the last 6 months hadn't happened. Where's Alexander? She demanded, pushing past Lily into the foyer. He's at physical therapy, Lily said, shocked to see her sister after so long. What are you doing here? I came back for him, obviously. Jessica flipped her hair. I heard he woke up. I heard about everything. And I'm here to fix things. Fix things? You abandoned him! I panicked, okay? Jessica said, not sounding sorry at all. It was scary seeing him like that. But I'm ready now. I'm ready to be his wife. He's already married, Lily said coldly. To me, Jessica laughed. Oh, please. That joke wedding. Everyone knows that wasn't real. You were just keeping his spot warm until I could come back. That's not how marriage works. It is when there's billions of dollars involved, Jessica said. She pulled out her phone and showed Lily an article. Do you know who Alexander Morrison actually is? He's not some boring consultant. He's a tech billionaire, one of the richest men in the country. And he was mine first. Lily felt sick, and not just from pregnancy. He doesn't want you. He knows you were cheating on him before the accident. Jessica's smile faltered for just a second. He can't prove that. Get out of this house, Lily said. It's not your house. It's his house. And once I talk to him, once I remind him of what we had, you'll be the one leaving. Jessica left, but Lily knew this wasn't over. Her sister had smelled money, real money, and Jessica always got what she wanted. Sure enough, over the next few days, Jessica launched a full campaign. She showed up at Alexander's therapy sessions. She called his office. She posted old photos of them together on social media with captions about true love surviving everything. Alexander's business partners noticed. They started asking questions. Why was Alexander's ex-fiancé so publicly trying to reconcile? Why was he married to her sister instead? The optics looked bad. It looked like a messy family drama, and messy family dramas didn't inspire confidence in business deals. The pressure mounted. Board members suggested Alexander should clarify his relationship status. Some even hinted that reconciling with Jessica publicly might be better for the company's image than staying married to the substitute bride. Lily heard all of this through the mansion staff and Alexander's grandmother. Alexander himself still barely spoke to her. When they had to appear together at a charity event, he was polite but distant. To observers, they looked like a couple going through a rough patch, which wasn't far from the truth. One night, Lily overheard Alexander on the phone with his lawyer discussing options: annulment, divorce, how to handle the optics, how to minimize damage to the merger. That's when Lily made her decision. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't live in this mansion. Married to a man who saw her as a burden, she couldn't watch Jessica manipulate her way back into his life. She couldn't raise a child in this cold, complicated mess. The merger would be complete in 2 more months. Lily decided she'd stay until then, fulfill her contract, and then disappear. She'd take the money Alexander had given her, move far away, and raise her baby somewhere quiet, somewhere simple. Alexander would get his merger. He'd be free to reconcile with Jessica or find someone else, someone who wasn't a constant reminder of the worst time in his life. Lily started making plans, looking at apartments in other cities, researching schools where she could teach, creating an exit strategy. She didn't tell anyone, not her parents, not Alexander's grandmother, especially not Alexander. In 2 months, she'd be gone, taking with her the secret of the baby that Alexander didn't know existed. The baby he'd never know was his. It was better this way, Lily told herself, cleaner. But every night, as she lay in bed with her hand on her still flat stomach, she wondered if she was making another mistake, if running away was really better than telling the truth. The night before Lily planned to tell Alexander she was leaving, everything fell apart. She'd been packing quietly in her room, folding clothes and trying not to cry, when she realized she'd left one of the pregnancy tests in the bathroom trash. She'd been so careful to hide them, but in her emotional state, she'd missed one. Lily rushed to the bathroom, but it was too late. Alexander stood there holding the positive pregnancy test, his face completely pale. "When were you going to tell me?" His voice was barely a whisper. Lily's mouth went dry. I was going to tell you after the merger. After I left. You were going to leave?" Alexander looked at her like she was a stranger. "You were going to leave and take my child without telling me?" "You made it clear you didn't want anything to do with me." Lily's own voice broke. "You paid me to stay away from you. You treated me like a business problem. What was I supposed to do?" "Tell me the truth," Alexander shouted. "That's what you were supposed to do. Not lie, not hide, not plan to disappear with my baby." "Your baby?" Lily shot back. "You don't even remember that night. You were barely conscious, confused. You thought I was someone else. It didn't mean anything to you." Alexander stared at her, and something shifted in his expression. "Is that what you think? That it didn't mean anything? How could it? You hate me." "I don't hate you," Alexander said, his voice dropping. "That's the problem. I've been trying to hate you. I've been trying to be angry and cold and push you away, because it would be so much easier if I hated you." Lily's heart was pounding. "I don't understand." Alexander set the pregnancy test down and moved closer to her. "I need to tell you something. Something I've been keeping from you because I'm a coward." "What are you talking about?" "The last 2 weeks before I fully woke up," Alexander said slowly. "I wasn't completely unconscious. I was aware, trapped in my own body, unable to move or speak, but aware. I could hear everything. The room started spinning." "Everything?" "Every word you said. Every story about your students. Every time you read to me. Every confession." Alexander's eyes locked onto hers. "Every time you told me you were falling for me." Lily felt like she couldn't breathe. "You heard all of that?" "I heard you say that marrying me was supposed to be just business but became something real. I heard you tell me about your dreams of opening a school. I heard you cry and tell me you hoped I'd wake up because the world needed good people like me." Alexander's voice cracked. "I heard you say you loved me." Tears streamed down Lily's face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was terrified," Alexander admitted. "Jessica had just used me for money I didn't even tell her I had. She'd been cheating on me, lying to me, and then I wake up to find out I'm married to her sister, and that marriage also started as a financial transaction. How was I supposed to trust that? How was I supposed to believe your feelings were real? So you pushed me away. I pushed you away because I was scared of being hurt again, scared of believing you cared just to find out it was all about money." Alexander reached for her hand. "But that night you're talking about, when I was confused and barely conscious, I wasn't confused about who you were. I knew it was you, Lily. I'd been listening to your voice for months. I'd know you anywhere," Lily sobbed. "I thought you didn't know. I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. I was trying to tell you in the only way I could that I felt it too. That somewhere in that darkness, listening to you, I'd fallen for you." Alexander pulled her closer. "And now you're carrying our baby and planning to run away. How could you think I wouldn't want to know? Wouldn't want to be a father?" Because you paid me $500,000 to stay away from you. I paid you $500,000 because I'm an idiot who didn't know how to deal with my feelings. Alexander said. I was hurt and angry and scared, so I tried to turn it back into business. But it stopped being business the moment I heard you singing to me in that hospital room. They stood there, both crying, both exhausted from months of miscommunication and fear. I'm sorry, Lily whispered. I should have told you about the baby. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry too, for everything, for being cold, for pushing you away when all I wanted was to pull you closer. Alexander cupped her face in his hands. I'm still recovering. I still have months of physical therapy. I'm still dealing with the business merger. My ex-fiancé is apparently trying to manipulate her way back into my life. This is all messy and complicated and probably a terrible time to do this. Do what? This. And he kissed her. It was gentle, careful, full of months of unspoken words and suppressed feelings. When they finally pulled apart, Lily was crying again, but this time from relief. What about Jessica? Lily asked. What about the board members who think you should reconcile with her? Let me handle Jessica, Alexander said firmly. The next day, Alexander called a meeting at the mansion. Jessica showed up thinking she was about to win. Instead, she found Alexander, Lily, the grandmother, and Alexander's entire board of directors waiting. I want to clarify something, Alexander said, standing with Lily beside him. Jessica and I are never getting back together. Our engagement ended when she abandoned me to go party in Paris while I was in a coma. Jessica's face went red. That's not fair. I was scared. You were cheating on me, Alexander cut her off. With that photographer you claimed was just a friend. I knew before the accident. I was driving to confront you about it when I crashed. The room went silent. Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear. My marriage to Lily might have started as an arrangement, Alexander continued. But it's real now. She's my wife. She's going to be the mother of my child. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. He turned to his board members. If this merger falls apart because I won't play pretend with my personal life, then let it fall apart. I built this company once. I can build it again. But I won't trade my family for a business deal. His grandmother smiled proudly. Well said, my boy, Jessica stood up furious. You're choosing her over me? The kindergarten teacher over someone who actually fits into your world? I'm choosing someone who saw me as a person when I was at my lowest, Alexander said. Someone who sat beside me every day not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Someone who loves me, not my bank account. Jessica looked at Lily with pure hatred. You think you've won? You trapped him with a baby. That's pathetic. Actually, the grandmother interrupted, I think Lily saved him. From you. From a loveless marriage, from a life of never knowing if he was loved for himself. She turned to Jessica. There's a check waiting for you downstairs. A generous severance for your trouble. Take it and leave. This family has no place for you. Jessica grabbed her purse and stormed out, but not before turning at the door. You'll regret this. I really won't, Alexander said, pulling Lily closer. After everyone left, Lily and Alexander sat together in his study, the same room where she'd first discovered his journals. What happens now? Lily asked. Now we do this right, Alexander said. We stop pretending. We stop hiding. We be honest with each other. I'm scared, Lily admitted. What if this doesn't work? What if it does? Alexander interrupted. What if we stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just trust this? Trust us? Lily looked at this man who'd become her unexpected husband, who'd heard her deepest secrets while trapped in silence, who'd fought his way back to consciousness and then fought his way through fear and hurt to find her again. Okay, she said. Let's trust us. The merger went through 2 months later. Turned out Alexander's board respected him more for standing up for his personal life than they would have for playing political games. The company's value actually increased. Lily's baby bump was showing now. She'd had to tell her kindergarten students that Mrs. Lily was going to be a mommy, and they'd made her cards covered in crayon drawings of babies and hearts. Alexander's physical therapy was progressing well. He still had hard days, but Lily was there for all of them, just like she'd been there when he couldn't move at all. They renewed their vows on a Tuesday exactly 1 year after Alexander had first opened his eyes. This time it was real. This time he could say I do and mean it. The ceremony was at the mansion in the garden. with Lily's kindergarten students throwing flower petals and Alexander's grandmother crying happy tears. "I married you once when you couldn't say yes," Lily said during her vows. "But I'd marry you 1,000 more times just to hear you say it now." "Yes," Alexander said, smiling. "Yes to you, yes to us. Yes to this beautiful, messy, unexpected life." Their daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in spring. They named her Hope, because that's what Lily had given Alexander during those dark months. Hope that there was still goodness in the world. Still people who loved without condition. Still reasons to fight your way back. As Alexander held his tiny daughter for the first time, with Lily exhausted but glowing beside him, he thought about the accident that had changed everything, the coma that should have been the end but turned out to be a beginning. "Thank you," he whispered to Lily. "For what?" "For marrying a man in a coma. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For saving me," Lily kissed him softly. "You saved me too. Gave me a family, gave me a reason to believe in love." Hope made a tiny sound, and they both laughed, exhausted and overwhelmed and perfectly, impossibly happy. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead to the best ones. Sometimes being forced into an impossible situation opens doors you never knew existed. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. And sometimes, just sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected places, even in a hospital room. Even in silence, even when you're not looking for it at all.